You know, there's a reason that the mainstream media really does not care for this channel and channels like it. It's because when we say we're explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of the culture curve, we mean it. And today we're going to take to task a writer over at Deadline that for the most part we have lauded and applauded for the work that this person has done. But today, apparently they have been dropped in a vat of pixie dust, and we're going to have to unspinify what is otherwise a completely spun-up story out of Deadline. And folks, you heard it in the intro, we are explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of that culture curve. It's what we do each and every day here on the WDW Pro channel. If you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms when you click it. We're talking about the notification bell. Today we're going to Deadline to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Yes, it does indeed have Disney terrified, although the legacy and access media outlets out there would like to have you completely under the opposite impression. And for common business sense, after all. If you were to catch on to the fact that this movie is heralding in a awful box office future, well, then you might not go see more movies, and you might have a negative perception of the entertainment industry at large. And then that would cause, well, these writers and their industry that they cover to be diminished, and they don't want that, of course. Now, I like Anthony D'Alessandro out of Deadline, but he is on a tear lately, and we are going to have to take him to task just a little bit. We are going to dissect this article out of Deadline, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, even higher, with 118 million plus opening. MCU James Gunn threequel had 90 million global promo partner campaign. This is all sunshine and roses, if you read the article, but reality is far different, and I'm going to show you how this is done. And by the end of this video, I am very confident you'll walk away saying, learned a few new things out of Pro today. Now I see what they do when they spin. So we'll get into this. Also, I'm not trying to be negative towards Anthony. Like I said before, love his work usually. In this case, not so much. Do I think that he's intentionally doing this? No. I think that sometimes people just get caught up in the industry. All right, so let's read the article. James Gunn's MCU threequel, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, came in even higher than Disney was anticipating. That's not true. We'll explain. We had a sense it was 116 million on Saturday night. The pick is now at 118.4 million per Disney this morning, after a 31.4 million Sunday. Yesterday was forecasted at 27 million. That's the 12th highest opening of all time during the month of May, and $8 million above the projected 110 million. All right. Ooh, this is going to be a fun one. Sorry, Anthony. This is a film that was projected originally to come out around 140, and that was already concerning considering that Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness came out last year to 180. So 140 was a problem, considering this is the end of your trilogy on the Guardians of the Galaxy, considering that they have become quite possibly one of the most celebrated and loved, beloved franchises within the MCU. The fact that it was pulling 140 for these characters was very concerning. Now we're at 118. So it came in more than 20 million below the projected amount. Now, did it manage to outdo what Disney's internal projections allegedly were a week ago? Yes, when they were freaking out because it was looking like it might get down into Ant-Man Quantumania levels of 108. But that's not to say this is good. And that's not to say that it outperformed expectations. You don't get to drop millions and millions of dollars in expectations over weeks and then barely outperform the low bar that you've now set and then say, oh, we did great. That's kind of like, it's kind of like going to a race and somebody tears their ACL and they can, they hobble across the line finally. But they beat what you thought originally when you thought, oh man, they're going to have to quit the race. No, that still doesn't mean they did well. You're proud of them that they managed to cross the line, but they didn't get a record for themselves, and neither is Guardians of the Galaxy. So let's cut that one out. That's pretty silly, but it's going to get sillier, and we need to talk about this. This is where we can learn a little bit, and that's really the goal. We don't want to We don't want to ridicule anybody. Anthony D'Alessandro does a good job most of the time, so we're not here to mock or ridicule. But this is an opportunity to learn, and so we need to do this. This is something that I conferred with Valiant Renegade on before the video to get some more understanding of this, and so I think all of you out there will benefit as well. Here's what's exclaimed, let's say. Disney accomplished this feat, by the way, a feat of, good Lord, it's not a feat. It's horrible. It's a flop. Disney accomplished this feat, this AM, off a global promotional partner campaign valued at $90 million, ad sources tell us. I understand that amount is more than double the spend for the two previous Guardians of the Galaxy films combined. And this is the ultimate spin. This is special. Let me explain. On top of the marketing spend that companies do to put these movies out there in the public consciousness, to put them into ad campaigns, etc. Beyond that, which is usually for Marvel around $150 million spent entirely by the company, by the distributor, that being Disney, they also partner with groups. Let's say it's McDonald's selling Happy Meals. And then those partners contribute money, but it's not coming off the budgets of the distributor. So Disney it's not costing them anything. And so these partners come in with the idea that they'll also benefit by tying themselves to this product. So let's say the Happy Meals again. The idea for McDonald's is, yes, we'll tie into this at whatever amount, maybe 20 million. And then people will come buy our Happy Meals even more because it'll have, in this case, the Guardians in there. And that's what this global promotional partner campaign is. And so, number one, this is not a feat. Compare this to Super Mario. And compare this to the fact that just by looking at inflation, we know that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 dropped around 30% of the total audience from the second one. That's a big problem. It's a huge problem. You don't want to drop 30% of your consumers. Now, I enjoyed the film. I gave it an 8 out of 10. It's flawed. It's not as good as the first two, but the ending is incredible. And so I give it an 8 out of 10. I like this movie. I might go back and see it again. But I also am not here to fanboy or to make stuff up. And so I'm not here to tell you that it's going to make money, because it probably is not. Unless this thing has a dramatically better hold than other Marvel films, this will lose money at the box office. And that sucks for James Gunn and the people who participate in the Guardians. But it's as a result of Marvel making horrible decisions. Now, so that's number one. This is not a feat. But then also, talking about this promotional partner campaign as if this is something special. Let me explain this to everybody. And there's a huge bit of news in this once we finish.
Floral, it's time for you to walk the plank.
What? Why?
Because you haven't subscribed to WDW Pro yet. Nor bookmark thatparkplace.com on your web browser to get great articles from great contributors.
What?
Yes, perhaps this is valued at more than double the spend for the two previous Guardians of the Galaxy films combined. That would be for an obvious reason if that's the case. The obvious reasons would be, one, the first Guardians of the Galaxy had almost no brand recognition at all. So McDonald's and these other partners are not going to tie themselves to a franchise that nobody knows what it is. Nobody knew who Star-Lord was outside of extreme Marvel fans. Nobody had any idea who Gamora was or Drax or any of these characters. This was not even close to the top of Marvel's roster. Now, they became bigger, but that partner campaign for the first one is going to be right down there near zero. Okay, so then you're only comparing one film to one film, because the first film probably did not have partner campaigns at all. Okay, so that's a little trick that's played there, and perhaps Mr. D'Alessandro doesn't know that maybe he was just told this and carries it forth. Who knows? But the other thing about this is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 essentially has no competition for the month of May. Mario owned April. Guardians gets to own the month of May all the way up to Memorial Day. And that means that these partners don't have anybody to tie themselves to unless it's the Guardians. So therefore, they're going to do it. And yet at the same time, this promotional partner campaign, folks, this is what you've been waiting to hear. This is what the whole video is about. This promotional partner campaign is pathetic. It is pathetic. This number is pathetic. And the idea that it is somehow impressive is laughably bad if you understand anything about the industry and the numbers. Okay, let me prove it. Take a look at this right here. This is an article all the way back from June 27th, 2012, out of Variety by Mark Gracer. Spider-Man campaign aims to snare FIMS. And the big thing in here is that we're looking right at this paragraph. This is the big one. From 2012, remember, folks, let's go up one paragraph just to give it context. To do that, Kellogg's and beauty brand OPI are now in the mix with companies like Carl's Jr., Twizzlers, Schick, Walmart, and Target in the U.S. to back the web-slinger's new adventures, guaranteeing Sony access to different demos on TV, online, radio, print, in stores, and theaters. Altogether, around 400 promo partners worldwide have ponied up an estimated $200 million in marketing support for the film. That being The Amazing Spider-Man by Sony, not an MCU film. $200 million in 2012. Well, folks, what does that equal for today? Going to the U.S. inflation calculator, we find that that equals out, adjusted for an inflation, $262,930,000 and $215 added on. Chump change, I think not. So over $260 million. $260 million for The Amazing Spider-Man out of 2012 in promotional partner spending. Versus today, $90 million for the third film in Guardians of the Galaxy, the end of a trilogy. A franchise that was perhaps one of the most popular in all of the MCU. $90 million. Essentially, a third of what The Amazing Spider-Man from 2012 had. That being a kickoff of a new set of films starring Andrew Garfield. Anybody impressed now? What this really tells us is that, in fact, promotional partners, if we're at 90 million, promotional partners are abandoning the MCU. It's not a positive. This is terrible. At only 90 million, promotional partners such as McDonald's and others perhaps are reassessing their success when they invest into the MCU. Marvel is no longer a guaranteed win, and that is why this is only a third of what you might have expected to see. Oh, but you wouldn't know that by reading this article, would you? And again, not trying to be overly critical of Anthony D'Alessandro. We all mess up, we all screw up, and perhaps he would have some sort of counter argument. He's welcome to come on the channel and discuss. Maybe I will be the one with egg on my face, but I think not at this time. It goes on to spend a very large amount of this article talking about all of these various partners who have somehow managed to help the company do this amazing feat. It's not a feat, though. It's not particularly impressive at all, in fact. And so this movie is now on its way to being a flop. $118 million in the opening weekend is better than the $108 that we may have anticipated before. But $118 million domestic and sub 400 when you take in the worldwide. That's not going to play out well if this film tracks on par with normal MCU film. It's just not. So at this rate, and considering that Disney only gets about 50% of the total box office revenue coming back to them and into their coffers, well, they need to make something like $800 million for a sure bet that they're going to make a profit on it. That's right. The production on this we anticipate is somewhere around $250 million. That's pretty typical for Marvel at this point. We also anticipate that it's about $150 million in marketing spend, especially when you consider that they've done Super Bowl ads and all sorts of things to try to generate interest in the film. And so overall, it's probably somewhere around a $400 million total cost to get this film out and to advertise it. And 50% of that means they'll need to make $800 million to make a profit. That's going to be a tall order, although I hope the film does do it. The MCU has hard times ahead, and Disney is terrified of what this means. If the Guardians struggles to do well, a film that just based on inflation and an increase of movie ticket prices of about 30% since 2017 should have made $200 million plus in its opening weekend domestic only. If the Guardians can't do that, if the Guardians can't be profitable, then Disney is in dire straits when it comes for its future Marvel films. And what will happen? What will happen, folks, with these promotional partnerships when the Marvels comes out? If it's already down to $90 million for the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, perhaps the only partners they're going to have for the Marvels will be Midol and feminine hygiene products. I don't think that other partners are going to be too keen to latch on to a Marvel who seems to be unable to make a profit. That's not in the interests of the others, the other companies out there. They actually like money. And hopefully Disney, Feige, and the rest can all figure that out real fast, because they need to start making money again. Folks, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms. When you click it, we're talking about that notification bell. Drop a comment down below. I covet your comments. I care about what you think, and I want to read it. And don't forget, folks, that if you are interested in becoming a member, it's only the price of a soda. You get all kinds of exclusive content. In fact, we just put out an awesome video, almost an hour in length, with Lauren Connor and Tommy Tables going through replicas and props and pieces from movies. It is a tour de force if you are interested in entertainment and if you're interested in those kinds of replicas. Fantastic content. I love it. Well, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun, and don't be too mean to Anthony D'Alessandro. Remember, we all miss it every once in a while, even the great D'Alessandro. Take care.
Make sure to catch The Pro Show Thursdays 5 to 7 Eastern Time. Entertainment Explained, The Culture Curve Conquered, live with Pro and all his friends.